Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for checking in and joining us today on the webinar, The Future of Sustainable Plastic. We have a big range of speakers here coming from Norway, South Africa, the United Kingdom, and hopefully some attendees from lots of other different places as well. And yeah, the purpose of today really is to illuminate some of the solutions and some of the actors in the private sector who are working towards this future of plastics and how we can transition away from the traditional plastic system we have today. This is being supported by the International Cleantech Network. So we are a collection of cleantech cluster ecosystems from around the world, 15 different regions around the world. And we are working to try and stimulate the global green economy and to help actors across the triple helix of society, so businesses, academia and government, to really work together, and citizens as well, so the quadruple helix, to work together to try and catalyze some change. And we're also being supported today by the Solar Impulse Foundation, an organization that are looking to identify the leading solutions around the world to solve global challenges which are still profitable whilst remaining environmentally friendly. And the World Wildlife Fund as well. We have a speaker who's going to say more on that in just a few minutes. But I'm going to hand it over now to our moderator, Kirsten Barnes, who is coming from GreenCape / the Plastics Pact in South Africa. And yeah, please just enjoy yourselves, ask questions in the chat, and then we will open it up into a roundtable at the end. But I will hand it over for now to Kirsten, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, James, and welcome everyone. Thank you very much to our panelists. So as James mentioned, we have speakers today from Norway, South Africa, and the UK. And what is common to our speakers, that is our speakers have recognized a common problem. And the common problem actually to all of us on the webinar today is the way we currently extract, design, use, and dispose of plastics in our society. And this problem has been highlighted in a recent report called Breaking the Plastic Wave by the Pew Foundation and Systemic, with many other global partners, including the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And what this group did was that they modeled our business as usual. So if we look at current trends in the way we extract, the way we design, the way we manufacture, the way we use and dispose of plastics currently, what will that look like in 2040? And the results of that modeling study found that by 2040, we'll double the plastic production globally. We'll see plastic leakage to the ocean increasing by a factor of 3, and we'll quadruple the plastic stocks in our oceans. So I think it's just the scale of the problem. We've all recognized, it's been evident for a number of years that we have a problem, but the scale at which we are predicting this problem into the future is quite shocking. And in terms of that study as well, the study also looked at what are the interventions, what do we need to do in order to turn that tap off? What do we need to do to address this problem? And our speakers have decided to be part of the problem, to be, part of the solution. So in terms of the challenges we face in having to transform our systems to those that are circular, we need to look at a system where our plastic is retained in the economy at its highest material value for social, economic, and environmental benefits. And our speakers today have some very exciting innovations that they'll present on that. And I'll just run you quickly through our agenda. So we're starting off with Lorren of WWF, who will present on towards a global agreement on plastic pollution. So considering the size of the problem that we're facing, global coordinated action from a number of different spheres across a range of sectors is key in achieving a solution to our problem. We will then break for 5 minutes of questions. So please feel free while Lorren is speaking to place your questions in the chat. We will collate those questions and then put them to Lorren directly after her presentation. Following that, we'll move into our innovator section, and we'll start off with Norway with ocean plastic to furniture, where we have a trio of speakers presenting. Then we'll follow up with a South African circular business model, presented by Christopher Smith, and then we'll move on to KCC Packaging and look at their journey to sustainable packaging. So once we have particularly finished that section, we will then go to roundtable. So again, please, during the presentations, you're welcome to place your questions in the chat. We will collate those questions and address them after the group of innovators has spoken. During that time, you're also welcome to indicate that you'd like to speak, and I will then engage with James, and we will have your questions posed live. So, and then we'll do a quick wrap up. So we have a very exciting agenda to get through. So we're going to kick off directly with Lorren. So Lorren de Kock is the project manager for the Circular Plastics Economy program at WWF South Africa. This program takes a systemic or life cycle view with a focus on industry and government to transition the currently wasteful linear plastic system to a circular economy with environmental as well as socioeconomic benefits. Lorren is also on the steering committee of the South African Plastics Pact, which is a voluntary agreement between industry and government committing to time-bound targets to address plastic waste and pollution. She's also on the Zero Waste Advisory Board for the Branson Centre, which supports entrepreneurs in solving the complex waste challenges we have in South Africa. Lorren has worked in various industry sectors for the last 20 years and has a master's degree in environmental and process systems engineering from the University of Cape Town. Thank you so much, Lorren. We look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you for the introduction, and I think I agree with James and Kirsten that this is a systemic problem. It's not the plastics material that is the problem. It has many benefits, but it's the way we manage it and the system that we find it in. So today I'm going to be talking about how policy can actually assist businesses and how policy is one input into this systems change that we need when it comes to the current plastic system. Next slide, please. I'll just quickly talk about WWF's work in the plastic system, and then I'll go on to the plastics pollution or the global agreement that is currently underway, and then I'll briefly chat about the benefits for business when looking at an agreement at a global level. Next slide. So our approach at WWF South Africa is, again, a systems approach. We don't just focus on end-of-pipe solutions, cleanups. This is more than a waste management issue, and what Kirsten was referring to in breaking the plastic wave is that you need interventions at every stage of the plastics life cycle in order to have an impact at the scale that we require. So we work at the business level, and that is very much upstream with the product design, the delivery of the products, and then we also work at the cities level. We have developed some frameworks for plastic smart cities for different parts of the world. And then what I'll be focusing on today is more the global policy side that we're working on. So we are supporting and calling for a legally binding agreement at an international level to support this transition to a circular plastics economy. Next slide. We know that this problem is a global commons problem. It is also a transboundary issue that we are facing. We know that millions of tons of plastic are flowing into the oceans each year, and the oceans are it's a transboundary area, just like the atmosphere is for climate change. We have various treaties already in place for environmental issues such as ozone depletion. We have the Montreal Protocol, as well as the most well-known one, which would be the UN Treaty on Climate Change. We have the UN framework for the Convention of Climate Change managing that process. South Africa, and I'm sure many countries globally, are also signatory to the Paris Agreement. But what's lacking at this stage is one for plastic pollution, and it ties in very nicely with all of these other environmental issues because it is, again, a global problem and it has a very large scale. What I'm going to be referring to today is, business is also a key driver in previous UN treaties. And I'll also make the case for why a UN treaty on plastic pollution is very beneficial for business. And just to take note that this was a joint project, and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation was also involved in this project together with WWF and the Boston Consulting Group. Next slide, please. Briefly on the process of the UN Environmental Assembly. So this problem was originally identified in 2014. You can see that going forward, a lot of progress has been made. We have UNEA 5 next year in February. We will be looking to set up a negotiating mandate, and that will mean that you would have something similar as the UNFCCC for climate change. You'll have a very similar organization coordinating activities when it comes to addressing plastic pollution. Even from 2019, we had various countries and regions calling for this UN treaty, Amsterdam being one of them, and South Africa was one of the countries supporting this call in Amsterdam last year in November. And then we also had other governments such as India and the EU calling for this UN treaty. And then the group of friends was formed in this year in 2020, also calling for and supporting this international legally binding agreement. Next slide. The momentum is there. We've had so many academic papers being published. One has already been mentioned, Breaking the Plastic Wave. We've had many reports coming from civil society. We've also had governments that have indicated their support and put forward policies, and I'm specifically referring to the EU around transitioning to a circular plastics economy. And then what's left is business. So what is business looking for, and how can business actually benefit from a UN treaty? And that's what WWF, together with the Boston Consulting Group, was looking at. Also providing business for a platform to be actively involved in these negotiations, so that they could also benefit going forward and have an impact. Next slide. So what we've seen is quite an increase in the number of initiatives going forward. We've had a lot of awareness that has come up since, in the last 5 years. This isn't an old issue. I think in the last 3 to 5 years, it's really become to the fore for many countries, for the public. And of course, businesses have been involved in setting up quite a few voluntary agreements, or there have been initiatives. The most well-known one would be the Ellen MacArthur, the New Plastics Economy Global Commitment. We also have Resource Plastic, which is a very similar commitment by businesses to transition to a circular plastics system. And of course, to support this and to complement this, we would look for policy forthcoming that would actually help to address the global scale of this problem. And hopefully, we're sure that this would lead to achieving the circular economy that we require in order to address the plastic pollution challenge. Next slide. Again, you can see the exponential growth in the number of plastic initiatives since the early 2000s, and the list is still growing. Businesses have to deal with having to engage with the many plastics initiatives that are out there. Next slide, please. And this isn't just in the plastic landscape. We have, for every environmental issue, we have many initiatives out there trying to address this and using different approaches in most cases. And again, when it comes to climate change being the most well-known, there are also other environmental issues with initiatives underneath, like biodiversity, like water, like deforestation. And now businesses have to deal with another environmental issue coming this way, and having to decide, which fits into our strategy. How can we align our KPIs with these requirements from this initiative is quite a daunting task. Next slide. So as I've mentioned before, we have had many previous environmental issues that have been covered by a UN treaty, and the characteristics of these environmental issues are there listed. What we are seeing is that these issues are leading to a deterioration in the environment. They are transboundary, such as the atmosphere for climate change, such as the oceans for plastic. And it is an international, it's a transboundary system as well. So it's not just a system that's been set up in one country and is isolated. It is very much interlinked. And that's why UN Treaty is seen as one of the best platforms to address this issue. Next slide. So the benefits for business, what can it offer countries and business? Number one, definitions. An agreed harmonized set of definitions and standards, which we can draw from the new plastics economy, is definitely a benefit, because what we're seeing now is various forms of definitions, uncertainty around that, and then a common policy framework. Many countries are not aware of what policies to put in place to have best impact, and that can be drawn from the Global Action Partnership by the World Economic Forum. The reporting, that's also problem experienced by businesses and countries at the moment. There are no standardized reporting methodologies and metrics, and this can also be addressed going forward through a UN treaty. And then also funding, especially for developing countries where there's a lack in infrastructure, there's a lack of models and processes in order to support this transition. Funding could be made available for those countries going forward and those sectors. Next slide. And just to sort of summarize, what are the benefits for business? I've listed, you know, what we're sitting with currently and the gaps that we need to address, and how the UN treaty can address those gaps. And that's what I described in the previous slide when it came to definitions, policy guidelines, reporting metrics, and also funding. But how can this also benefit business? And this talks to reducing the operational complexity and risk across international markets, not just local markets, but international markets. And also it allows businesses to then operate in a more stable policy environment. We're hearing a lot nowadays that businesses are complaining about the policy uncertainty when it comes to regulation around plastics, plastic packaging. Also, businesses have to report to various initiatives, international client reporting requirements, local, and this will definitely standardize the reporting that is required from businesses, just as the Carbon Disclosure Project has standardized reporting for businesses within the climate change space. And also lastly, you know, funding would be provided for infrastructure, for processes and alternative technologies that need to be explored going forward, which would also support businesses operating in environments where these factors are not available or do not exist. Next slide. So thank you. I hope I've shed more light on how policy can also benefit business going forward, and how policy is also a mechanism to address the scale of the problem that we're seeing at the moment when it comes to plastic and the leakage into the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorren. It's fantastic to see that we are looking at the unifying across a range of different initiatives working in different spaces. And I think the power of such a unified treaty, so you've mentioned in terms of reporting, we're able to get a better sense of where we all are globally and how we're doing as a global collective in addressing this problem. And I think we're also going to be able to identify increasingly points of synergy and aspects that we can learn very effectively from each other through this process. So I'm very excited about that. So do we have any particular questions for Lorren? So other panelists, you are welcome to unmute and ask a specific question. From the questions I can currently see from our attendees, I think these will be better addressed within the panel as a whole. Okay. So Lorren, I know you've mentioned something around the way forward, but do you have any sort of further details about where we are in terms of global interest and what we're expecting in the near future?
In terms of global interest, we've had a lot of countries, you know, publicly, you know, supporting this call for a legally binding agreement. And as I mentioned in one of the slides, the African Ministerial Conference of the Environment, which represents all 54 countries in Africa, have supported this call as well. We've seen a lot of support from the EU, from the Scandinavian countries, from India, and Africa, also the Caribbean, a lot of island nations as well, which obviously rely on tourism as their main economic sectors where they receive, you know, their incomes from. Not so much from the Americas and the Far East at this stage, but I mean, next steps, it has progressed to such an extent that it's not standing still at the moment. So, you know, if a negotiating mandate, if there's no agreement on a negotiating mandate in the next UNEA, we will be, you know, contacting more countries. And I mean, there are many NGOs involved in this space as well as businesses. And I think for the first time, that's why we called on businesses to get involved and also to support this call. So we have a few South African companies that have signed up and pledged their support for this as well. So the momentum is growing, definitely.
Okay, great. That's fantastic to hear of that momentum growing. And there will obviously be, as you highlighted, a lot of work in harmonizing and synergizing. And this is a really good initiative that we will see great impact from. Thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate that. And then we're going to move into our innovator section. So we're moving to Norway. So we're doing a fly around the world at the moment in this webinar. And we're going to be have a trio of presenters, as I mentioned, from Norway, looking at ocean plastic to furniture. So first up, we'll have Lars Urheim. Lars, I'm sure I butchered your name, but I have been trying to practice on the quiet, from UPA. And as a brief introduction, Lars is co-founder and CEO of UPA. Lars earned his Bachelor of Arts and Master's degree in Interior and Furniture Design from the Bergen National Academy of the Arts. A true entrepreneurial spirit, Lars thrives under the pressure of creating new solutions to current challenges. Lars is the inventor of 3 patented technologies and has led UPA's innovation projects related to regenerative business and the circular economy. I am going to present or introduce Larissa at the same time, so I don't interrupt the flow of your presentation. So Larissa is the second of our trio. So Larissa Slottet joined Ogoori in 2020 to implement its sustainable business model based on a circular economy. Larissa is a green growth specialist, having studied at the Norwegian Business School, and has a bachelor in business and a major in international relations from Brazil, where she comes from. Larissa lives in Norway and has lived there for more than 12 years and has vast experience in advisory and international relations, and she is an environmental activist by heart. I think we are still the third of the trio. There's Rudolf. I see you on board. Hi, Rudolf. I'm going to introduce you at the same time then. So we also have Rudolf Meissner from IVAR, the Chief Advisor on Waste Management, and IVAR is an intermunicipal public company for water supply, sewage treatment, and waste handling in Norway. And before that, Rudolf was the Managing Director of the Waste Management Department in a city in Norway, and then also a research scientist working on many questions related to environmental policies and regional development. Rudolf is originally from Germany, although practically Norwegian, I think, having arrived in Norway in 1986. Rudolf was educated as a geographer and included also studies in economy, law, and political sciences. So really diverse and interesting background there. So our Norwegian trio, I hand over to you. Thank you.
Hi, and thank you, Kirsten, for the nice introduction. I'm happy to be here and present the ideas of UPA. We're innovators in this space around regenerativity and circular economy. unwillfully entered the plastic world out of a problem approach, not because we're in love with plastic at all. So my opening picture here shows me on a beach with the Minister of Trade and Industry in Norway, is in Norway, where I'm handing her a jar of the first ever Norwegian production of 100% ownerless marine waste granulate. And I'll tell you a little bit about how we ended up with that and where that is leading us. So why are we doing this? Well, we acknowledge the dependency of nature and our own love of nature, which we share with people all over the planet. And what OPA is about, we build collaborative value chains to restore nature. We do it through circular design products delivered as a service, connecting our minds with the physical world, basically. So we started off developing a circular furniture system. So this is our main product, a system not made of plastic or ocean plastic primarily, more conventional materials, but designed for reuse and reassembly. So this is the life cycle product that will change when your needs change, and made up of a few standard components that allows for this constant redefining the need. So we felt very sustainable doing this, but then selling this in a linear model would still make us a part of the growing problem, which is very well illustrated here from Geyer et al. The graph showing the production of plastic in the world since the 60s, and unfortunately the graph showing the plastic waste is very similar. And as you can see, this growth very much followed the general growth in the world economy and the world population. It's ongoing, and as Kirsten mentioned earlier, the plastic industry has a plan to triple this over the coming decades, or quadruple. I'm not sure where they are at right now. At least it's moving in the wrong direction. So the number at the bottom here is a very rough estimate of the material value of what gets lost in this linear economy that we are now a part of, all of us, in plastic. So a transition to a circular economy, in that transition, this is the opportunity space that we have to create and generate new value, which is immense. We're talking 90% of the material value that's lost in the linear economy is an opportunity to create value in the circular economy. For businesses, I think there is a big choice that needs to be taken. We took that choice 2 years ago by changing our goals from the regular goals of a company to make profit and payouts to the owners. We set our first goal to be, we're gonna clean up nature. Second is we're gonna inspire others to follow. And then thirdly, we're gonna earn money doing that. Because in our view, there is no alternative here. 99.9% of the businesses around the world is on the left side of this line. And some claim to be standing on the line, being neutral, but that's actually not possible. And for a small company like ours who can't document all our impacts, we just had to take a big leap and cross the line to become regenerative. And by that, I mean, we restore nature, and we do it through our core activities. So the regenerative OPA, how do we do that? Well, our ambition is something we share with people from all over the world, and that's also what we've seen. We are recruiting people from all over the world into our company. Stavanger is an international hub, and our vision and our goals is something that's shared among a lot of people, young people. And we started looking in our own environment. The ocean is littered and we need to clean it up. Beginning, trying to do it one-on-one, we clean up as much plastic as we use in our current value chain, but it actually brought us further to this ambition of building a value chain around your regenerativity. And sorry for having this slide in Norwegian, it's not been translated yet, but this is the model we built. It's a what I call a regenerative circular value chain. We developed our own phrasings around this, plastic capture and storage. So we take plastic out of the environment and store it in a circular value chain where it's looping forever. This in turn is the backbone of the regenerative business modeling that we're doing research on that, and Ogoori, which we will hear from very short, is a result of that work. So where are we now in practical terms? We've just launched our first product, and to meet the current needs in the market is as essential as meeting the challenges of nature and the waste. So Uber is a focus tool for the home office. We've developed a solution for non-verbal communication and anchoring your focus in a world where many people have challenges separating work from private life, particularly relevant during the Corona situation, but this is an ongoing trend that's much bigger than Corona. So this product is made out of reclaimed materials, 100%. The wood is from reclaimed boats that have been cleaned out of nature and the surroundings. And the base made of 100% Ogoori plastic delivered in a service model. Now, my final words here is on this well-known butterfly model and what is circular in this. So the wooden component is a bio component that easily can enter the natural system of regenerativity. But the plastic that we're using is cleaned out of the ocean and should never enter the ocean again. And my biggest concern is that it seems like the waste industry has more or less stolen the principle of the circular economy, and that there is now a general understanding that recycling is circular economy. In my opinion, recycling, in particular with plastic, is the last resort of the circular economy. So circular economy is all about avoiding recycling as a solution, because we are planning a future without waste. So that means we need long life cycles for products made from technical materials kept in completely closed loops. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Lars. So, Larissa, you look forward to your presentation.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm sorry, my camera is not working, so you guys cannot see me, but I guess it's enough with the slides. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is like Norwegian startup that was created with a very high level of sustainability on its core. As Lars just mentioned, he is behind the idea of that. This was born from a project that OPE has run. But Ogoori is now an independent company, and I'm going to explain you how we aim to achieve this sustainability. But before, I will just share with you these images and my feelings that I had when I joined for the first time, a cleanup session in the Norwegian coast. This is just outside Bergen. It's a big city here in Norway. And when I arrived in this island and I saw the whole landscape covered by plastic pollution, I really had like a crash on my heart. And, you know, I was just feeling ashamed for being part of this humanity that is consuming for so long time in this linear model. We explore the planet, we make products, we use for how long we want, and when we don't want anymore, we just throw it out. And it was really sad to see and understand that this is even not close to the most critical scenario around the world. But after like a few hours cleaning up together with, can you come back? I think that After a few hours cleaning up, you know, like this feeling was completely flipped inside myself, and I was sure that we can do that. It's possible to deal with the whole entire pollution if we have a plan for what to do with this marine litter. Now you can maybe change the slides. Yeah. So this is Ogoori's business model. Our idea is to organize this value chain where our beach clean partners will remove this marine litter from the coastlines. Then our industrial partners will transform that into either plastic granulate or powder. We are going to build a digital DNA with the story of this plastic to add value to that. And then we are going to deliver it to our customers that will create new products with this plastic. And these products will be offered to the market in the circular model, creating impact to the society, the economy, and the environment. Next slide. So this is the sustainable value chain network that we have been established so far. We have been creating a relationship and partnership with all these organizations. And if you are able to just see, once we clean up first, we develop research, and then we produce this granulate. And once we have this material on Ogoori, we are going to deliver it to brands or to our customers in this perfect closed loop recycling. So our customers will build their products with this plastic, and then they will choose if they want to reuse in the end of the life cycle, or if they will return it to Ogoori. And this is going to be the way that we are guaranteed that once we do the cleanups, this plastic will never more become ashtrays again. And this is a very nice example of a circular economy. Those are the first products launched by our by our first customers, Ope and Vestra, that are also our founders. And both of them are made and are going to be offered to the market in a rental model. So it's both circular, and in the end of the life cycle, they are able to separate the elements and return the plastic to Ogoori. So we have in the back of our minds that this is claimed to be a partnership for goals. We are partnered with many different organizations. Our team is very passionate about going out in nature, doing what's supposed to be done, and giving a new life to this plastic that is today polluting the planet. Our business model is tackling 5 of the SDGs. And just as Lorren has mentioned, this is the way that we found to collaborate with a new system. We have been finding challenge. Obviously, this is like a disruptive, innovative model. And what we need more now is like more companies with this open conscience to partnership with us and to contribute for us to achieve our goal, that is to give a new life to the plastic that is today polluting the oceans and the beaches and the coastlines. But it's obviously a green investment, and until we have laws in place and rules in place, I think that we are just counting with the goodwill of the business sector to understand that we have to start to look to economy with new eyes. And instead of exploring the planet, that we could regenerate the planet while producing profits. That's it. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is whatever.
Great. Thank you so much, Larissa, and Rudolf. Thank you. Rudolf, you're on mute.
Now I'm unmuted, I think. Yes. Originally, originally I should show you a film about our waste sorting plant, but maybe this is not working. So I just give you a orientation of our work by one page. IVAR is an intermunicipal company which is in charge of all handling of waste, of household waste in our region, in the Stavanger region, with 325,000 inhabitants. And last year we opened a brand new waste sorting plant in the Stavanger region. It is an automatic sorting plant which can take out both plastics and metals and also some kind of papers from residual waste, so from the rest waste. We have today 50,000 tons of residual household waste in our region. And when I say residual waste, and it is residual waste because the people in our region are they are good in source separations, so they separate a lot of other things like food waste and paper and so on. But we wanted to take out even more from the residual waste. And what we do is that we, among others, take out 5 types of plastics directly from residual mixed waste. This is LDPE, this is plastic film, and the rigid plastic types of HDPE, PP, PS, and PET. So we take out today 4,600 tons of plastics. And of these, only PS and PET is sent to other recyclers in Europe for recycling, but HDPE and PP and LDPE is washed in our own washing plant, which is connected to our sorting plant directly. And we recycle these 3 types of plastics to either flakes or pellets. And flakes and pellets are commodities. You can use these flakes and these pellets in producing new plastic products. So in this way, our target, our mission is to close a loop from waste again to product. I would also say that our sorting machines can not only separate these 5 types of plastic. We can, if we reprogram them, we can take out other types of plastics or blends of plastics. But today there is no market for other types of plastics. So if there's a market, then we can take out even more types of plastics. And our sorting machinery is also able to take out recyclables from other sources than residual waste. That means if someone is giving us marine plastics, for example, which is collected from the shore, from the beaches, we can take out the plastics which are usable from there, or we can also sort in a way source separated plastics from others. So our machinery is very flexible, and the special thing in our case is that we not only have a sorting plant, but we also have a plastic washing plant which makes new commodities and new raw materials of old plastics. Yes, that was what I wanted to say.
Great. Thank you so much, Rudolf, Larissa, and Lars. Fantastic to see the collaboration presented here. We're going to move, please do keep your questions for the end of this innovator session. We're now going to move on to PalletPlast, and Christopher Smith of PalletPlast will be presenting. So Christopher studied agriculture at Nelson Mandela University in the George campus in Western Cape and completed a BTech in turf grass management. After Christopher finished working in Mauritius and in Sun City, South Africa, both great places to work, I would say, for a large corporate, Christopher changed lanes and joined his family business in the plastics converting sector with the aim of growing. I think as a farmer, you've got a lot of insight into growing and expanding the client base. So with now being in your 8th year in the family business, you've seen substantial growth and diversification, and including the birth of PalletPlast 3 years ago. And we're excited to hear about your circular solution, Christopher.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Kirsten. I think the talks before just make me want to create circular loops and sort of business cases between the people that have spoken so far. I'm like all excited and ready to go again. It's amazing. Yeah, but thanks for the opportunity. The PalletPlast story has been one of great interest, and we're on a bit of a high today. We've just found out that we've won the Gold Pack awards for 2020 in South Africa. So we're really stoked about that. Yeah, we can move on to the first slide there. So just a bit about ourselves. PalletPlast at heart are plastics converters. We've been around for about 3 years, and we really, what we do is we manufacture a range of plastic pallets. The aim through this is to develop and maintain circular economies between ourselves and our clients, and I'll get onto that a bit later as to how we've sort of structured that to benefit our clients. And we're continuously trying to create inventive ways to use the plastics that are previously not recycled. So, you know, IVAR, the presentation before this, the reason it got me excited is because of the extraction of different plastics from different sources. And I was just thinking of a couple of rivers and things here locally, and you know, if you could put together systems where there's extraction of plastics from those rivers, I think you'd end up with many thousands and thousands of tons of plastic waste that's ready to go back into the system. And then yeah, we try to be solutions based in our approach rather than product based. So as well as selling obviously a product as a business needs to do, we also try and sell a solution. So we end up talking to clients who have plastic problems, particularly skeletal waste problems in the thermoforming sectors, and try and create circular economies around those. We can move to the next slide. A bit about our product. South Africa exports more than 10 million pallets of various types of goods every year. And I think if one had to think about how many trees, I haven't been able to do the math, so forgive me. I'm not the world's best academic. But 10 million pallets out of one country that is a drought-stricken country, very dependent on agriculture, and has a plastics problem, is it's a lot of timber. So our product really was created by the need for a cost-effective and more sustainable alternative to a timber pallet. Our research has told us that through the biggest export markets that we feed, particularly in the fruit sector, being Europe, the USA, and the UK, that the end result of South African timber pallets is waste to energy. So our pallets are, as soon as they're unpacked, they're taken to a waste to energy plant and they're incinerated. You know, from a timber perspective, obviously there are phytosanitary hoops and regulations with regard to ISPM 15 regulations, and there's a threat to more sustainable long-term timber applications. You know, timber, in my or in our opinion at least, has a much more sustainable uses when it comes to things like furniture and housing rather than packaging. So what do? We manufacture pallets from different forms of rPET, from polypropylene, and from HDPE, all recycled materials, and it's all recyclable, obviously. And unless someone asks us for a virgin product in particular, we manufacture from recycled materials. We're a business-to-business circular economy, so we want product first. That's at least how we were born, and more as we entered the sector and realized that our clients are actually looking for something different, we started working around a solutions-based approach. We moved slightly away from the industry that we initially thought would be our primary target industry, and started looking at industry as opposed to export markets. And we realized that there are many converters in South Africa, at least, that are sitting with tons and tons of plastic that they've processed several times, and that they actually have no application for at this stage. We were also shocked in certain instances that people were paying to have granular dumped into landfill sites in various cities in South Africa, which is just it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's money that you're putting in the ground. It's product that you're putting in the ground that could be used again. So that led us to believe that, you know, there's no circular economy or business-to-business relationship that works if there isn't a cost saving. So if I can go to client A and say, listen, I'm going to save you money, but I'm also going to enable you to tell a hell of a good story about how you are disposing with your waste in a cost-effective and responsible way. You know, it really does give you credit worldwide. It gives you the ability to have a zero waste sort of policy, and you're buying back your own material in a different form. So there's a lot of wealth creation through that process as well. We also had a huge requirement to make the products even cheaper. You know, so that pushed us in creating these circular economies, and in a lot of situations, basically what we are is we're a converter for our clients. So we have the tooling, we have the machinery, but they've got the material, and we're able to supply them with this product. So if we can move on to the next slide there, it's basically about saving money, linking the resources, keeping things simple, and solving problems. So if I'll go into each one of those individually quickly, saving money, I think, speaks for itself. If there's something that you're paying $100 or 100 Rand or whatever for now, and you can have the same product or a better product for 10% cheaper, you already have people's attention. Linking the resources, so we can't sell pallets to someone who doesn't use pallets. So we have to link these resources. So it's about people who have a requirement, but they also have a waste source, and we're able to put those two together. Keeping things simple, I'm a very strong advocate of. I hate it when someone, you know, comes in front of me and they got a 50-page document, and you're going to sign 3 times on each page, and you know, it doesn't work for me. If I can have a 1-pager for everything in my life, that's the way it would be. And I think that's a big sales point as well. You know, if the simpler the end user can perceive the solution, the more chance the solution has of success. And I think it goes for a lot of different spheres of business as well. And then solving problems. And it goes hand in hand with with linking resources, is that, you know, we in many situations have been able to solve problems for some of our bigger industrial clients, and you then automatically perceived as a problem solver, or a problem solver by your clients, which which make you the go-to. So when they have a plastic problem, or when they need something in future, you will be their go-to. And we found that in a lot of situations that has been the case for us. Next slide. So just a couple of synergies that I'd like to highlight that have been quite successful for us, and they've come out of the strangest places. Montego Pet Nutrition is one of them. It's for those of you that don't know South Africa, Graaff-Reinet is a town that is located pretty much in the middle of nowhere in an area called the Karoo, and they're big dog food producers. They produce around between 300 and 400 tons of dog food a day that gets exported and distributed around the country. And they had a huge problem on their bag line. So all this dog food gets put into bags, and they didn't know what to do with these waste bags. So the bags that that got caught in the machinery, or that were printed incorrectly, etc., etc. And at the time, believe it or not, they were loading 10 Superlink vehicles a day by hand. So we came to them with a solution and said, listen, we will make pallets cost effective for you. A, you're going to be able to load your trucks faster. B, you're going to be solving a resource problem and a waste problem. And your whole system is just going to work much better. So that's been an absolutely fantastic sort of circular system there. We get their waste every month, we pelletize it, and we're able to convert it into pallets for them. So they've paid for that material already. Impact VersaPack, they had quite a big problem with some excess CPET that they had on site, and we've been able to do the same thing. And so we've taken their CPET. It was actually quite an interesting trial, because we traditionally made these pellets from normal PET or APET, and the CPET was actually had a foaming agent with it. So we were really, really excited to do these trials and to see how far we could push this material, and we've had fantastic results with it. And they've in turn been able to supply some of their food contact clients with these pellets that are using the pellets as a pool pellet in a circular sort of environment. And then with Berry Astropack, also thermopackers, it's been exactly the same thing. But what was really exciting about that relationship is that was our first laminate that we were able to process through our plant. So for us, it was really sort of the boundary pushing as well, that we were able to. So we use an infrared drying process for our PET drying, and we were able to structure our drying process so that our laminate didn't melt, firstly, but we also were able to dry the PET to such a point that we were able to process it, and that particular material has actually produced some of our strongest pellets to date. So those are just a couple of examples. So why does it work for us, and why would we promote a business-to-business scenario? First of all, it's sustainable. It's the right thing to do, and it creates good products. There's a huge requirement, especially in developing countries, and I'm talking about South Africa in particular here, where post-consumer waste collection systems are not the norm. I was listening to the previous speakers, and I can only imagine how nice it must be that most of the things are recycled and there's a collection system in place. Here where we are, most of the areas don't have collection systems. You drive down the road and people pile up their waste, and maybe once a month or once every 2 months a municipal vehicle comes along, throws it all in the back, and most of the time it would probably go to landfill. And there's a huge opportunity in that. I believe certainly from a circular economy perspective. Obviously, we need to demand more from our municipalities, but that's a whole different discussion on its own. It's a good solution for us for mixed product applications. Our product, where the traditional application or the traditional recycling methodology for PET is bottle to bottle, so it would all have to be washed, it all has to be color sorted. It all has to be granulated and repelletized. With our application, we can accept mixed PET variants. We can have contaminants in there, and it enables us to access material that traditionally is not wanted by the market, and in turn that makes our product more competitive as well. Then to continue there, yeah, we're able to, as I said, now get in at lower product prices. The huge cost benefits for our clients, and then there's obviously less reliance on virgin materials. The utilization of previously underutilized waste materials is a big one for us, and we, as I said earlier, have won a couple of awards to that effect. And you know, I think that's one of the most important things, if I could, that I'd like to highlight today, is that there's such a push from a polymer perspective to create all these fantastic materials that do all sorts of things, but there's often not the reciprocal push on the recycling side to be able to say, well, what do we do with those materials when they reach end of life or end of application? And it goes down to, you know, the laminate wine bottles and the barrier layer, bag in box sort of things, and what do we do with that stuff afterwards? What do we do with it to get it back into the system? And in that, the responsible disposal of waste materials. So yeah, as a result, you know, we obviously, you know, we don't buy a lot of our materials. They're supplied by our customers, so it gives us a lower revenue base. But also from a business perspective, it enables us when we're busy to operate at higher margins, as the raw material portion is a zero base. Can move on. So yeah, that's just a couple of our awards and a couple of our affiliations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Really good to see the solutions and the circularity increasing since our last discussion. And thank you for putting Karoo on the map for the international attendees. Karoo is more sort of rural, small town. Fantastic. Think wide open spaces in big sky country. And I think, Christopher, also in one of our conversations, you mentioned that you've seen a report where they say there's more pallets in the world than people. So if we think of your pallet solution and the impacts, there's huge potential impacts with such circular solutions. So both, as you mentioned, dealing with granulates that could end up in landfill, and also looking at the carbon footprint, etc., of the pallets and what that might mean for this industry. So thank you, a very interesting and useful presentation. So now we're going to move on to okay, thank you, Christopher. Now we're going to move on to Kevin Clarke. So Kevin, thank you so much for being on the call, and we're interested to see your journey to sustainable packaging. And just by way of introduction, Kevin has been in food packaging since 1976 and worked with retailers and food supply companies extensively since then. Kevin has previous experience in flexible materials production and thermoforming in prior businesses, and has been working for the past decade on finding a sustainable alternative to CPET ovenable ready meal trays, which KCC is now gearing up to manufacture. REGI is KCC's moisture barrier coated tray development that is set to enter the market in early 2021 and will enable improvements to the user and operator packing ready meals. It is a fiber coated tray and made from sugarcane. So thank you, Kevin. We're looking forward to hearing more.
Thank you, Kirsten. That was my entire presentation.
People are already looking at our LinkedIn stuff.
Yeah. I have to work on that tomorrow.
Whoops.
Sorry, just could attendees please mute themselves?
Sorry.
And I was going to be nice about him too and say, well done on getting his award in South Africa. That's a great achievement. We actually have in our garden some fantastic garden furniture, which I got from South Africa over 20 years ago. And it's much better than wood. It doesn't rot. It weighs a ton. So it's not easy to borrow. by your neighbors. So yeah, it's really good stuff. I'd just like to go back to Lorren from WWF and how she started out by talking about how we have to deal with the issue of waste plastics in the environment. And I totally agree, we need to be looking at the front end of the pipe. By the time it's got into the oceans and into the environment, it's a bit late. So without me going on too much more about that, I'll just quickly tell you about what we've been doing at KCC for some time, and it's been an interesting journey. So you can see a picture of a sugarcane field there, and the next slide. Thanks, James. So basically in the UK, which is the biggest market in Europe and probably one of the biggest in the world for ready meal trays, we like our meals in a ping from the microwave and from the oven. The CPET tray is king of the heap at the moment, and it's crystalline polyethylene terephthalate. It's quite a high energy product to make. It was calculated by a German university a number of years ago that to make PET, I think CPET as well, emits about 6.5 times its own weight in the product in carbon emissions. So to put that into simple terms, for every ton of CPET, you've just created 6.5 tons of carbon going into the atmosphere. So it's not a very good deal. Another material which is used for ready meals is aluminium, which is not as popular as CPET, but it's still out there. It gives the retailers something different to try. And that has a carbon footprint of about 20 to 1. The good thing in favor of aluminium is it is very recyclable, which cannot be easily said for CPET, which is quite a tough material to deal with. So it was interesting to hear Christopher talking about how they had managed to use some CPET in making some pallets and so on. So our solution is to find, not yet, a bit early, is to find a alternative to that product. And we looked at many different materials over the years, and we settled on fiber trays. And fiber trays, typically sugarcane is a waste product, is one of the best because the sugar is a crop for the food, obviously, and the cane is discarded. It's been made into plates and burger boxes, typically for the big American market for many, many years. And it is ideal and can do nearly everything that is required of it in its state. However, for the retail operations where you're packing wet food into it, it comes up short because after about 24 hours, the moisture in the food will go through the tray and spoil the tray. And retailers aren't working in minutes, they're working in numbers of days. So when you pack something, it needs to be still good in about 10, 12 days time, after which it's gone through the stores, the distribution system, it's in the customer's fridge and they're ready to use it. Obviously, some will get used quicker. For food service, which is where it's used at the point of delivering the hot food, it's fine. So we had to look to find a way to how to take this great material that is good in the microwave, the oven, go in the freezer, it can compost and recycle as paper, and make it work for the retailer. So we decided to look at how we could create a barrier for that product. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. The next slide. So part of our mission is to try and reduce the non-recyclable CPET element in the marketplace. There's, when we started out about a decade ago, there was something around about 850 million trays calculated to be used on the UK, in the UK market. And today, we think that that is more than 2 billion. So this is a lot of product. It has a particular issue as well, which is that as defined by WRAP, the organization in the UK, if it has a 2D smear on the tray, then it can still be recycled. If it has a 3D smear, which basically means a lump of some food which is baked onto the side of the tray, then this is not good for recycling as paper material, as a plastic material. Therefore, it will be sent to landfill or to incineration, which is a great waste of that material. So we have obviously an opportunity with the sugarcane product for our rigid barrier coated material for it to be recycled as either a paper product if it has a 2D smear, or as a compostable item if it has a 3D smear, which is something that would remove a lot of product going to landfill or incineration. It would also increase when we get the the collection of food waste at curbside by all councils, which is coming to the UK in 2 years' time. Okay, so recycling is fantastic. It is often touted as being the answer for all ills with regards to plastics, but in truth, it is one of the solutions, not all of them. And I do think that we have to look at how we can stop some of the product that is becoming a problem getting there in the first place. And in our particular instance with the trays, we think that switching to a pulp product, fiber, would make a great improvement on that particular situation. So we started, having got to that point, we looked at, next slide please, we looked at biofilms. So taking a plastic film and laminating it to a sugarcane tray. The results weren't particularly good. The films are very expensive. That wasn't just the issue. They don't stretch terribly well, and adhering them to the trays was an extremely laborious and expensive process. We decided then to move on to spray coating, and this created many issues getting the right material, which was very difficult. Since the advent of Blue Planet 2 at the end of 2017, so David Attenborough's expose about the ocean plastics problem, many more manufacturers have become interested in this whole area, and in recent times there have been some developments which have helped us create new solutions. There will not be, in my opinion, one size fits all. There will be many different solutions of how to create barriers, and they will have different properties. So more companies working on it is a good thing. Since I made this slide some time ago, we have increased our expenditure on our first production line, which was a pilot, and since upgraded to the full phase that we have now. We have more investment to go in soon to increase that, and it has been a process of very expensive R&D to get to the stage that we need to be in to make the product. But the encouraging thing, next slide, thank you, James, is the receptive atmosphere in the marketplace, because obviously we're talking to retailers and brand owners, people who supply customers directly and through stores, and to food companies and so on. And there has been a general slowness over the years to accept the need for a new solution to some of the products like CPET. But as you can see from some of these slides, things are changing on a broader picture. So, for example, with Heineken, they've come away from the plastic straps around the top of the cans to paper, which obviously is to card, which is recyclable. Some of the tea companies are now using paper without the polypropylene inside it to make tea bags. And you can see various comments from different social media in this slide, where people are complaining or making comments about the plastic that's used in the marketplace. I think my favorite one is the dog on the bottom slide, who's basically saying, and they don't want me to foul up on the beach when all that plastic is there. I think that's probably a good point. Now, it is claimed that many products are recyclable, and obviously some are, and some are not, or are maybe not being collected. In a moment, we're going to play a short slide from a television program in the UK, which emphasizes some of the kidology that is going on in the marketplace, which is ripe for change. This is because of the way that products are described as being recyclable or widely recycled when they may not be. I won't say too much more about that, but I think we have to own up in our industry to what needs to be done and to deal with it. I personally think that the idea of governments coming together and mandating what has to be done is going to be eventually what occurs. But of course, in business and as all good citizens wanting to save pollution in the planet, we should be doing our bit before they get their act together. So if we can play the video clip now, please.
Hi, Kevin. I see James is not able to play. James, do you want to just check that? Sorry, Kevin, I missed that.
Okay. So that's not going to work. Yeah. Okay, well, it was a very interesting slide where a gentleman by the name of Hugh Fernley-Whittingstall was talking to an industry expert about sandwich packaging in particular. And all sandwich packs generally in the UK currently are card, but they have a plastic liner. That plastic liner is actually quite difficult to separate, and in most cases it is not done. But because the possibility exists that it could be done, the material is described as widely recyclable, and the program made the point that this is misleading the public. I don't think this serves anyone well, and I think it means that the public are being misled. More honesty is required, but it also underpins the fact that there is a desire generally for doing good and for things to be recycled. So there are alternatives to some of these packs that cannot be easily recycled, and I urge us to embrace them as soon as we can and make the difference. I think I will leave it there and finish just a fraction early to see if there are any questions for my talk.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin. We really appreciate your time and love your commitment to developing these solutions that we so desperately need. Just so in terms of our presenters today, so we've seen Kevin speaking about upstream design and innovation. So from Christopher, we have dealing with industrial waste streams currently, so dealing with a problem of the industry and then creating a resource that can be reused within their businesses to great benefit. And then we've also seen the trio from Norway. So we've got Ogoori, and IVAR, all looking at ways in which we can extract from the environment the materials that do end up, the leakage that we see, sort that effectively, and then make a product which in itself is then circled, or that material will then be circled through their clients. So thank you so much. We really do appreciate hearing these innovations from around the world. So in terms of how we're going to run our roundtable discussion now, we've had a few questions come in the chat. So I will now read those out to you. We've got about 10 minutes left as far as I understand in our webinar. So let's start with a question for Lorren. So Lorren, what countries would you say are ahead in the plastics transition? So thinking about our transition towards a circular economy, and what actions have we seen from government to support this transition? You're on mute. Thank you.
It's difficult to say what countries are ahead because you have a lot of countries who have bans on certain plastic products, and what comes to mind is a lot of African countries have bans on plastic carrier bags, but they are just one part of the problem. To identify only one packaging type and seeing it as a silver bullet solution to, okay, we've banned this, now everything should work well and we shouldn't be seeing plastic in the streets anymore, in the oceans. You have some other countries like Canada just recently banned some single-use plastic products. And again, looking at it from a systemic point of view, it's about government policies being put in place that really have the impact that's needed to stem the leakage, to ensure that plastics remain at their higher value and stay within the economy, and product design that eliminates waste. So it's not just from a policy perspective, it's governments and businesses coming together in platforms such as the Plastic Pact network, that is a global platform, bringing people together, sharing knowledge, and committing to targets. So, I mean, the countries that have already launched plastic pacts globally, I mean, South Africa being one, where you're actually seeing businesses that are aware of this problem and they really want to do something about it, but the knowledge is not always there. That's very inspiring. And then, of course, I think from a policy perspective, what's been done in the EU, I've seen quite a few directives coming from the EU specifically around plastics, you know, the inclusion of a minimum post-consumer recycled content in plastic products going forward, also requiring that plastics coming into countries or into the EU are recycled in practice. I think this is a very good point that Kevin mentioned now. Being recyclable and recycled in practice is two very different things. So yeah, I think policies are coming up here and there that could be seen as quite effective, but still very isolated in most cases, like only plastic bag bans. And I think, you know, with the international legally binding agreement coming into place, hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll see more harmonization and more policy guidelines coming from the likes of the World Economic Forum to actually help countries and really look at it from a systemic point of view and not just targeting one part of the value chain, for example, just the waste sector or just one plastic packaging format.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Lorren. Just to note, there are a couple of more general questions. I'm going to hold those to the end, so if we have time, because we only have about 7 minutes left in our slot. Just a quick follow-up question. It was directed for Lorren. I think in the interest of time, I will answer it briefly. We can send, and our panelists can send more detailed responses after this webinar. From David Newman, Lorren, don't you suspect the plastic pacts are a great way of delaying action rather than taking it? If you look at its members, they're all huge plastics users. So thank you, David. I'm going to answer briefly from a plastics pact point of view. So agreed, we have very big plastic users, or we do have very big plastic users. And if you look at the sign-ups globally, we have more than 1,000 companies globally signed to Plastics Pact, as well as the global commitment to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is 20%, more than 20% of the plastic packaging put on the market globally. So if you look at the Plastics Pact, we have time-bound targets, very specific targets, very ambitious targets, and we are publicly reporting on our progress towards those targets. Also, what we see a general trend among Plastics Pact is a commitment to a plastic reduction target. So it could be a virgin plastic production target or an overall plastic production target. And if you look at the Pew report, Breaking the Plastic Wave, that has been highlighted as a key need for us to address our plastic pollution problem, is looking at the reduction in our plastic usage. And if you look at, for example, an innovation that is often pushed in terms of that, achieving that, and it's something that Christopher's sort of cycling of his pellets, and also if we look at the Norwegian trios example, we do see a cycling again of plastics. Those would then also achieve the reduction in plastic reduction in plastics globally. So thank you very much for that question. We are happy to engage beyond this forum. And then I'm going to move now to, I see you with Christopher. So from a Chris to a Christopher, are your pallets commercially competitive with single-use wooden pallets, or do you focus on multi-use pallets? So I think that was partly addressed in your presentation, but I think the question is, we're not just comparing single-use with single-use. So if you do that comparison, how do your pallets fare?
Yeah, so in terms of actual target market, the pallets are designed as export pallets. We don't like to call them single-use pallets. We like to call them export pallets because from a price perspective, they are, you know, yes, they do compete with the timber pallets from an export perspective. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Okay, great. Thank you. We can again take that conversation offline if needed. And then from Liz, Chris talked about saving money for customers. What is the attitude towards new innovation when the natural product costs more to produce than the plastic? So Liz, I'm not sure. Do you want to to further elaborate on that question, or if there's any one of our panelists who feel you can answer that.
Yeah, I'll have a go.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Okay, so I think it's fair to say that money is at the root of a lot of decisions about packaging, but it has become much more advisable to provide something to your end customer that they really want, even if it costs a little bit more. And very often the extra cost, which is considered by the retailer or the seller of the product, is not that significant in an extra to come to a more natural product. It's a simple fact that when, for example, you're forming fiber, it's a lot slower than running plastic at high speed. I've done both, and you can get the production cost of plastic down a great deal. But as I remind people that there is a cost for cleaning up the issue afterwards. So the plastic item that we're looking to replace in one particular segment is cheaper to purchase, but of course the real cost at the end of life is something else. And I think that's becoming more relevant conversations now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Kevin. And just also in terms of the plastics, if we're looking at the source of plastics, fossil fuel plastics, or polymers sourced from biosources, which can be manufactured in a way that they are polymer identical to fossil fuel based, there often is a greater cost involved. But again, I don't think that's the natural product that Liz here is speaking about. Okay, thank you so much, Liz. And then for Kevin from David Newman, what moisture barrier are you looking at using?
That's from David, an old friend of mine. Well, we have a number of different products. What I can tell him is that I'm very proud to announce that less than 1 week ago, we achieved a major milestone, and we managed to get a very successful pass, audited by, or run the test by Camden Laboratories, a well-known laboratory of repute. And one of our materials has now passed the migration test level, and we have an industry first, as I understand it, compared to CPET, where our product will be able to go into the oven at 240 degrees, which will give a lot of opportunity to increase the temperature for making that product nice and crisp. Of course, that's something that would avoid a lot of damage being done where people accidentally overheat something and the tray melts. Nice one, David. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you, David, for seeding some good discussion. Unfortunately, we do have other questions, but we are happy to engage beyond this webinar. So we will be sending out the links to this video, and including the video that we weren't able to play from Kevin. So please do look out for that. So I think it's now left for us to consider a call to action. And I think all our panelists have been very effective in that call to action through their inspiration in terms of innovation and highlighting what needs to change in the system. So I would encourage all on the call to consider your local initiatives, because what we see in terms of some of the barriers and opportunities in a circular plastics economy is that the local markets and the local contexts are very different, and therefore we do think a very local response in terms of looking at a global collaborative to address our plastic problem is very necessary. So please do consider other initiatives in your local context. Plastics Pacts are an example of that, so please do look those up. And a number of our speakers, in fact all of our speakers, have highlighted the need for collaboration. So there's no one sector, no one organization that can address these plastic issues that we face. And again, the Pew report, and David did say in the chat that he was contributed to the Pew report, has highlighted that we need to have a diversity of solutions from a number of different sectors working collaboratively, and we're not operating in a vacuum. So we encourage all attendees to consider those actions, and let's change our 2040. Currently, our 2040 does look quite scary with quadrupling our plastic stocks in the ocean. Let's change that 2040 through the combined and collaborative efforts, such as the panelists that we see on the call today. We thank you so much for your attention and look forward to future excellent conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten.